I've never been beat so badly or imagined me being beat so badly. It's so hard every day. And I remember during that altercation, he called me pathetic. Like, he looked me in the eye, spit in my face, and called me pathetic.
A victim of domestic violence, Tess Richey didn't know what a night out in Toronto would cost her. Drunk and defenseless, Tess's friend abandoned her in the shadows of the night. Today's story will break your heart as you learn about the tragedy of Tess Richey and a mother who found her missing baby, but in the most horrifying way possible. Before we talk about that fateful night, we must get to know Tess. Born on the 30th of November, 1994 in North Bay, 22-year-old Tess Richey aspired to become a flight attendant. The youngest of 5 girls, she grew up in North Bay, Ontario, Canada. Tess worked as an assistant manager at Days Inn in North Bay. She also had a small YouTube channel where she would post random things from time to time. In 2011, Tess met a man named David and they started dating. Unfortunately, it was not a very successful relationship. David was extremely controlling, isolating her from her friends. In fact, he got extremely abusive during a fight. Since Tess was just 16 years old, she didn't know any better. The relationship lasted 2 years until a confrontation on 29th September 2013. Tess made a video of what happened that day because it affected her so severely she wanted other people to be careful and not fall in the same routine that happened to her. Her last video was posted on February 23, 2014, sharing her struggles and heartbreak. At a Thanksgiving, during a fight, things ended in a physical altercation, but Tess got over it, not knowing that it was just the start. During a dinner, the night before her birthday, the couple were having drinks. When Tess accused him of cheating on her, David got extremely abusive, and Tess had to finally break it off.
We were up in his bedroom. This happened, and I'm so sad.
The last words she said to David echo on YouTube to this day. After taking counseling, she wanted to follow her dreams, and her dream was to travel the world. And with that goal, she moved to Toronto in 2014 when she was 19 years old. There, Tess enrolled in a flight attendant school at Seneca College in North Toronto. She got through her flight attendant school by waiting tables and even found love again. 3 years later, in 2017, she was ready to travel the world. She completed flight attendant training in 2017 and couldn't wait to start her new life. Tess sought opportunities in both airlines and hotels, but luck was not on her side. Struggling to find suitable work, her family had to financially support her. Unable to secure a job in her desired field, Tess turned to learning Italian and explored opportunities in Italy online. Why Italy? Since Tess wasn't one to give up, she decided she would become an Italian au pair, which is basically a live-in nanny treated like a family member. It would still help her travel. On November 23, 2017, Tess emotionally broke up with her long-term boyfriend, Julian. It took a toll on her mental health, and she was really depressed. This would set off a chain of events that brought Tess to her grim fate. She spent the following day with her older sister, Rachel, venting about the breakup, shopping, and visiting a dog park. Rachel cooked for the two of them to cheer up. That night, to relax, Tess planned to go out and meet Riley Simard, an old school classmate. Riley, originally from North Bay like Tess, moved to Toronto in 2017. After years without contact, they connected in the same city. Riley suggested going to Cruise and Tango's, a popular drag bar. Rachel's husband Greg arranged an Uber for Tess to meet Riley that night. The last time Rachel saw her sister was 11:30 p.m., 24th November, when she was rushing to get to her Uber, on her way to her grim fate. Arriving at Cruise and Tango's around midnight, Tess couldn't find Riley because the club was packed. The drag bar Cruise and Tangos was in an area dubbed Gay Village, which was, as the name suggests, some harmless fun. She texted her sister, a routine safety check, as Tess's phone was her constant companion, having located Riley by then. The next morning, Rachel, realizing Tess hadn't responded to her late-night texts, grew concerned. By 6:30 p.m., all calls to Tess went to voicemail, and her phone was off. This wasn't like Tess at all, so naturally, Rachel and their mother, Christine Hermison, were extremely worried. Since Tess relied on her mother for financial help, she used her credit card for Uber, and the two shared the same Fitbit account. Back in North Bay, Christina checked the Fitbit account, showing she had walked 300 steps after 3 a.m. Then, Christine received a request for Uber at 4:02, which was canceled at 4:14 a.m. However, Tess, always in contact, went silent. The texts were not even delivered to her phone. Rachel went looking for her at her apartment and checked with her friends. By 9 p.m. on Saturday, Tess was still missing. Visiting hospitals and reporting to the police seemed fruitless because they had no information despite actively searching for her. After 2 days, Tess's mother Christine and sister Verena Richey flew into Toronto from North Bay to help look for their missing girl. Posters were distributed, and the family did everything they could. Unknowingly, Christine would come across something so horrifying it would change her life forever. As the investigation reached Riley, she told them her account of what happened that night. According to Riley, the two girls were excessively drunk, after which the bar's security escorted them out. Riley recognized a man from the bar outside the bar. He introduced himself as Kalen Schlatter. Riley, in turn, introduced him to an intoxicated Tess. Kalen decided to tag along. It was 2 a.m., and they got some hot dogs on Wellesley Street. Tess took a bite of her hot dog and felt it wasn't a vegetarian option. The vendor had perhaps given her meat. She argued with him, and being absolutely drunk, she splashed his cart with mustard. The three of them ran off. On the way, Tess tried to get a cab, and as it slowed down, Kalen waved it off. He said the cab was blocking traffic, and they couldn't just take a cab in the middle of a busy street. Riley didn't think about it too much. The three walked all the way to Dundonald Street. There, they met a woman sitting on her porch. Her name was Michelle T., who was out smoking with a friend after work. Michelle liked the trio, and a very tipsy Riley told her everything about her breakup and how devastated she was. Michelle gave Tess her phone number and promised to help her get over the breakup with Julian. They spoke for 20 minutes, with Michelle reassuring Tess that everything was going to turn out just fine. Michelle was kind to Tess because she felt Tess was incredibly sad inside and was masking it with booze. Michelle also noticed that the man accompanying the girls wasn't very talkative. In fact, she didn't even get his name. It was now 4 a.m. in the morning, and Riley's boyfriend texted her to come home. Riley left Tess, thinking she was safe, as Kalen assured her he would get her home. So she headed back to her house. At exactly 4:02, Tess ordered an Uber, while she and Kalen were sitting on the bench, talking, waiting for the cab. They must have started walking because at 4:14, they triggered a motion-sensitive camera on a driveway of 582 Church Street, headed to a basement stairwell. 45 minutes later, the camera was active again, but this time it was just Kalen. So between 4:15 and 4:45, Tess disappeared. While officers were conducting routine methods and searching, Christina Hermiston asked a family friend, Anne Brazow, to help her. Anne's and Christina's girls grew up playing together since elementary school in North Bay. A nurse in St. Michael Hospital by profession, Anne would make a terrifying discovery. On November 27th, 3 days since Tess had been missing, the two women went looking for her. It's important to note here that in a report filed by the former Ontario Court of Appeal Judge Gloria Epstein, the lead detective on the case made a huge blunder. After receiving the exact location where Tess had last been seen, He failed to search the area, just assuming the area had already been looked at. There was no policy or protocol for the investigation of a missing persons case, so everyone was just operating independently, no communication whatsoever. This resulted in the horror that Christina had to face next, something that could only be a parent's nightmare. So there Anne was, knocking on doors, asking questions and literally looking at places where a drunk girl could have slipped off. About 40 meters from Tess's home, as they were scanning the place where Tess was last seen, Anne looked down a stairwell and was frozen in place. Dressed in her club clothes, her phone and purse on the ground beside her, Tess had been cast aside like a broken toy. Anne had to tell Christina, and without missing a beat, Christina rushed to find her baby, her youngest, dead at the bottom of a stairwell. It's tragic that two middle-aged women were able to solve the case of a missing drunk girl where the police force of Toronto failed them. The unfortunate mishap was that Toronto Police 41 Division, at the east end of the city where Tess had lived before, launched the investigation for her. The 51st Division should have been active because that's where she was last seen, and where her body was subsequently recovered. Now, to save face, police had to speed up everything. Investigators were able to obtain DNA on Tess's pant leg. Furthermore, the surveillance video of Cruisin' Tango was reviewed, and they saw Kalen Schlatter. Kalen claims he only found out about Tess's death on 10th December 2017. He was at home, watching TV when the club footage was played, and he was named a person of interest. He immediately contacted the police to identify himself. Officers brought him in for questioning. As Kalen was detained for quite some time, his parents came to the station and brought him a water bottle in case he was thirsty. Kalen drank up and tossed the bottle in the trash. Satisfied with the interrogation, officers let him go, and Kalen thought he had been cleared. But he couldn't be more wrong. The bottle he used was retrieved from the trash because the empty bottle held something valuable, Kalen's DNA. It was an absolute match. Officers were able to prove that his saliva and semen were found on the body of Tess Richey. February 4th, 2018, around 11 p.m., Kalen Schlatter was arrested just as he finished watching the Super Bowl with his family. He was placed in a holding cell between two undercover officers where he would give them ample evidence to be convicted. On trial for Tess's murder, Kalen said Tess wanted to kiss him. He told officers and his cellmates alike that he had slept with many women, and he was told he had a great body, claiming his manhood was above average to say the least. He loved to talk about his penis, and rightly so, because that's exactly what he was, a dick. What Kalen didn't know was that his cellmates were cops, actively working to expose him. He confessed that he left Kalen alone in the stairwell because he had ejaculated in his pants as they made out. He failed to mention that he had actually noticed Tess at the bar. But police deduced what truly happened was this. Tess was on her period when she met Kalen that night. Being bisexual, he had struck out with men and women, so he saw a drunk girl as a last resort for a hookup. When Tess would have said no, he wanted to punish her. As he boasted to a cellmate, Kalen had strangled her with a scarf and climaxed when he squeezed the life out of her. He walked back down the driveway and left Tess at the stairwell to die. During the trial, Kalen stopped several times to dab at his eyes while talking about Tess's death, claiming he wouldn't have left her drunk and alone if he had known what could happen. But the jury did not fall for the crocodile tears. Police also gave evidence of Kalen's obsessive interest in violent pornography that featured non-consensual sex and images of choking. Kalen Schlatter was found guilty of first-degree murder on March 23, 2020, and was given life in prison. Toronto police have been heavily criticized following the case of Tess Richey. This has resulted in Toronto police finally forming a missing persons unit that will go through cold case files from the 1990s onwards. In June 2018, police officers Alan McCullough and Michael Jones were charged with 2 counts of misconduct for neglect of duty under Ontario's Police Services Act. While Tess's mother has closure for putting the monster behind bars, it will never change how she found her baby girl at the bottom of that stairwell, simply due to the incompetence of busy officers who didn't value a life. It's important to surround ourselves with the right people when we're vulnerable, because one small slip-up could lead to horrifying consequences. Until next time.